We greet you on our channel. Today, an interesting talk is awaiting us on the eve of the new year. All the companies, families, countries have specific traditions. So Yunitskiy Stream Technologies has a tradition on the eve of the new year to broadcast and address greetings of the author of the technologies, Yunitskiy Stream, Yunitskiy Anatoly Yunitskiy. This year, we have decided to make it in the shape or in the form of an interview and ask Anatoly Yunitskiy some questions that people following the project sent us during this year. Hello, Anatoly Yunitskiy. Hello. I'd like to begin with asking a question that usually people ask themselves on the eve of the new year. What was important during the outgoing year? It's been one of the most difficult ones of all the previous years because the pandemic was still going on, lockdowns, and we are related to supporters in dozens of countries. Many of them, the companies that supplied steel, different polymeric materials, all the component parts, equipment, including for the rolling stock for our Unimobiles, constant magnets for electrical motors that we manufacture ourselves, for motor and wheels of our own productions. But still we buy component parts. And some of the enterprises were even closed. So we had to look for new suppliers. And the supplies were late a year or even 18 months. So it's a force majeure, practically. At the time, we managed to survive and became even stronger, unlike very many enterprises. Because very many enterprises of medium-sized business died. We still survive. A lot of money spent on salaries of designers, of engineers. So our engineering ship has become quicker and we are moving onward without extra weight. And nothing is impeding our movement forward. So there are even some positive moments. So only in this respect we had some delays. I promised that this year we would have signed contracts, so I'm as good as my words. We have 4 contracts signed. I'm not going to mention the countries and concrete addresses. And so, but these are concrete contracts, and we are getting money for them. So the feasibility study and the business plan is to be prepared. Why is it necessary? Any consumer, any customer needs to know how much is it. For example, if this tie, if it's a tie, it may cost 5 or 5,000 euros. Whether it's a car or a plane, well, there is no stable price. There is the difference in prices. So we are making infrastructure projects where there are very many component parts. the the overpass, which is a key component of our projects. The string rail, continuous design. It's a type of an overpass. So its cost depends on very many factors, the height of the supports. So the difference is, say, at 5 meters or 20 meters, etc. So the higher the supports, the more expensive the track structure. For example, if the supports are twice higher, then the cost will be 4 times more. So the spans can be different, whether they are 40 meters or 500 meters. The carrying capacity is also needed. Not knowing how many people we are to carry, we cannot know how many electric cars are to be supplied to the route. Trains and well are there in the metro, when you use in the railways, and here too. We know how the bridges are designed. Well, bridges can be for people or for tanks that weigh over 70 tons. So this bridge will be different, much more robust and much heavier and much more expensive. So we have to know whether it will be a unibus or a train made of unimobiles. So the span will have to bear 10 times more load. That is why the strings are to be tensed much more. We'll need more metal. The supports will be loaded more. They have to be heavier. Then the station is to be longer in order to be able to handle all the passengers. So the station will be more expensive. So even the carrying capacity is very important for the price. So if the supports are higher, then the anchor supports will be higher too, etc. And the relief of the terrain is also very important. It all influences the price. So all this is to be, very many factors are to be analyzed in the feasibility study. So it cannot be compared to the updating of the bus, company. So they don't need to add new lanes to the city roads. But here, everything is interrelated in our project. And all this is to be studied. Then, if we take urban routes, the quantity of stations and stops is very important. We don't know what will the distances between the stops be. 1 or 10 kilometers makes all the difference. So if there are 10 times more stops, the price will be much higher. So we cannot answer the question, how much is 1 kilometer? If there is only one stop in 1 kilometer on the length of 1 kilometer, then $5 million is the so it depends on the quantity of stations. It can be 5 million or $1 million. So if the station is higher, than lifts, escalators, including cargo ones, are to be installed. Not only passengers will have to be carried. So there can never be a definitive answer. So we have already carried out some feasibility studies, and we have received the money. And when we begin the preparation of projects, the designing stage, we will announce all this. But our consumers, our customers would like to announce them themselves. I can only mention that these projects are in different countries. It's in Asia, in the Arab countries, on the Eurasian continent. So this year was very important for us. We finally managed to sign contracts, and we have managed to receive the first money as payment for our projects, but we are earning money already, not only on Stream Technologies. We have very good production facility, and we have been receiving orders from very many countries and industries, including the defense one. I think that so half a year have passed, and we can tell about the electrical car project that we have fulfilled for the Russian Federation. The car has been shown even to the president of Russia, Putin. A big producer, manufacturer, was unable to fulfill this order, so we have made the car a complete car. So the body, the energy accumulator, one of the most complex parts of any electrical car, the so-called accumulator. We have manufactured ourselves the motors, motor and wheels, practically all the car, and it has showed good results. The speed, the evenness of the ride, so it was of a very high quality. So unibuses and unicars are also electrical cars for string roads. This one is for normal ones. So our quality surprised the consumer. It's just one example of very complex orders that we have managed to fulfill. So millions of dollars that we receive help us sustain our main project, to pay salaries. So when there are no direct orders because of lockdowns and people have nothing to do, these orders save the collective, save our workers from staying idle. We have very good, very important project administration department. So we have to pay salaries. We cannot rely only on the money of investors. And well, it was force majeure. 2 years ago, nobody could know what is happening today. It's a craze, and we managed to survive and to develop and grow in this situation. We have a construction company that is also surviving on additional financing, fulfilling orders which are being paid. So this is one of our achievements. Then another one, Finally, we have managed to certify the complex of the string technologies. If possible, I'd like to go on talking about commercial projects. As far as I understand, the company publishes annually the audit results. So next year we'll do the same, and people who are interested will be able to see the money received from commercial projects. Although no, all the money come directly because we are in Belarus and there are sanctions. The attitude to our country is not always adequate. Very many people abroad do not know that such a country exists. I've even heard it in Switzerland. They say, it's in Russia. It's after the Urals. I say, no, we're in the center of Europe. There is a sign of the center of Europe, and people hear about Minsk for the first time. And I heard these words from the border guard, an officer with higher education. So we do not always receive money directly. We have many companies in Europe. Only 3 of them are in the United Arab Emirates, and the attitude is much different in the world. The taxation politics is much different. All the orders are received directly by string technologies because it is necessary to pay high taxes on profits. To export money is practically impossible. It is even difficult to import. One of the consumers tried to transfer money for 3 months, and 5 times the money was returned. In the United Arab Emirates, it's much easier. So this is one of the goals of opening companies in that area. Yes, the sales office, in other words, Dubai is the place where businessmen come from all over the world, and VIPs, where they can get acquainted with the test tracks, certification, even make a test drive in our tropical unicar, and they are, and they're impressed. Before being skeptical, then when they experience it, they ask, wow, you've managed to do it. And they are surprised by the quality of our work. The first cosmonaut from Brazil was impressed a lot. Now he's the Minister of Innovations of Brazil. He's not just a cosmonaut, but a minister. Was here with the governmental delegation. There were about a dozen of the government members, and they remained in awe. This Minister of Innovations, a former cosmonaut, and it was interesting to talk to him about the space program. When people tell me, why do you get distracted from the main topic? No, space is attracting investors and customers. So it shows our high level of achievements. If I haven't had such an altitude of my thought, of my goals, I wouldn't be able to achieve such a level in unibuses, because we are to try everything here, because on that level, on a higher level, it's impossible. We cannot afford to make mistakes. But not the string technologies work out this project, I've created another company, Astro Engineering Technologies, not Yunitskiy String Technologies. In any case, we have publications. Not every Academy of Sciences can boast of the quality of works, scientific works, and the quality of the books or journals issued. So when I presented these works to the Minister of Innovations of Brazil, so he was interested, because Brazil, in the program, the commerce program, is very important, because the general planetary vehicle are to pass over the equator, and the longest part is passing over Brazil. So Brazil will play a key role in this project. Brazil is one of the most important equatorial states. It's very developed. So we had such a contact, and we had dozens of such delegations in the outgoing year. Next year, I hope we'll have even more visitors as such. Expo 2020, although it is in fact 2021, helps us. A year ago, I understood it, that we would have our exhibition in the Pavilion of Innovations, and maybe create some test track there. But when I found out that it would cost me about $10 million, and upon the end of the exhibition we would have to destroy it all at our own expense, I chose another way. Yes, I visited it, and I was surprised that one of the anchor supports near the central building of the Innovations Park. So our anchor support is even closer to the road. Yes, when I discussed it with the Sheikh of Sharjah, he was driving by, and he's the head of everything there. And he told me that he wanted to see beautiful stream transport. So we can say that we are fulfilling what we have promised to the ruler of Sharjah. So, returning to Dubai, one of the marketing companies is created there. Dubai has a very high international status, and so it is much better for the development of the project. So Yunitskiy String Technologies, what is its role there? Say a customer has come to Dubai. Yunitskiy String Technologies is an engineering company. It has to develop, not to pay dividends, to generate profits, etc. So this is the concept of business. So in the group of companies, investment funds make no part of the group of companies. Here we have only the companies that are engaged in designing, manufacturing, construction, science, etc. in string technologies, but they do not attract investments. So in the group of Yunitskiy's companies, only those who design, manufacture, and modernize the technology are included. So we are entering the market with the 5th generation transport, not what we have been working on within the framework of the fourth stage of development of the transport. But still, the consumer can come either to Belarus or to Sharjah. So I have such an argument. Several years ago, when I showed the pictures, everybody told me that it was impossible to do. You won't be able to to gather the collective and create it all. You're a futurologist. Nobody believed me, but now people see everything works despite the problems, force majeures, like what happened in Lithuania, because problems with financing, because not a single stage of development was financed to the full, but still we've managed to do more than we promised. So the whole complex is to be considered. So these are my obligations before the investors. I say, investors believe me. If we have problems in the future, you, all the designers, all the people working for me will just go away. But I'm responsible for it. So please do the way I tell you, not the way you want it. So before starting serious business and generating serious profits and serious dividends, it is necessary to create the holding group of companies which will have its function, and each company will bear its part of the function. So Yunitskiy String Technologies is to design. So all the projects that we take, so all the money for the project would go to the String Technologies company. But this money will be used to develop the project, not to pay dividends. Dividends will be paid by another company, the company that will order, market, accumulate the money, from which it will be possible to pay to any country, to any investor, the money that will not be taken away. So that's why there are the companies working, say, in the United Arab Emirates. We are not disclosing how they are functioning, but when time comes, we'll show what they are doing. So not everything is seen in the audit of String Technologies, what is happening in the group of companies. But in any case, the money paid for the project will be seen. Yes. So there are some conclusions. So not all the work is in the creation of string transport is concentrated within Yunitskiy String Technologies. And number two, the dividends for string transport do not depend directly on the engineering company reaching the stage of self-sustainability. In no case we will allow it to be in the red, even if String Technologies were in red. It will never happen, but still, theoretically, it will never happen that even if String Technologies is in red, the dividends will not be paid. There are other countries that will be able to pay dividends, where there are no high taxes, where there are no limitations, where you have to overcome different obstacles. So we have created many companies because they are located in places where we will be able to work without problems. So they are not in offshores, because the attitude to offshore companies is not very good. But say I can call it a white offshore. One of such companies is the United Arab Emirates. That is why we have companies in this country. So the creation of string transport complexes and investment projects. There are investors which want to be loved, and we have to fulfill our promises given to them. So hopefully next year we'll be able to announce the projects that we mentioned. I cannot promise, but maybe we even will be able to start paying dividends. I hope in the coming year we will be able to sign more contracts. What is happening in the world is delaying a bit. Countries are closed. You cannot come to some countries. You cannot have talks there. You cannot meet with the government. They cannot come to our country to see what we are doing. About what contracts can we talk in this situation? And nobody will pay money having seen nothing. Will you buy goods not seeing them? The simplest, even the simplest goods. Will you buy a car having seen only a picture of it? Even a car which is $20,000 or $30,000 worth. Well, you can see it if your neighbor has it, but our project cannot be seen anywhere, only in Belarus or in the Emirates. What you're saying, it's a practical case. This year, because of the lockdown, we had such problems. When a client couldn't come, meaning the final stage, yes, they had to transfer about $3 million in their money because of that coronavirus craze, because of lockdowns. The whole countries are closed. Then, in order to wrap up this topic, I can the contracts in question are the first stage of the first stage of commercial implementation. Yes, this work has been going on for many years. Take Dubai, for example. The agreement with the Transport Administration was signed several years ago, and they are viewing our technology as the last mile roads in the network of roads in Dubai to Skypod, how they call this program, and they have even managed to, they have even written it on our rolling stock, Skypod. All this information is in the internet. So in 2019, we have signed an agreement with them, but it does not mean that a contract is to be signed right away. I cannot disclose the essence of it because there is a confidentiality aspect. So it's clear that the work is going on. The life cycle of an infrastructure project is very long, like this. So it takes 3 years to announce the tender, but, well, in spring they plan to announce it. So about some other projects. This year, there have been some real, we are on a qualitatively new level. So I'd like to tell you in more detail about the certification and what is its importance. I've never been afraid of it. A lot of people are afraid. It's something terrible. Well, airplanes are certified for 10, 20 years. Well, let's understand what's a certification. It's a compliance with with very simple requirements. For example, they're very simple. Take the cabin, for example. The door has to be wide enough not to, to be able to handle the carriage of, say, a handicapped, of handicapped people. So it must be of a certain width. It's not a problem. When I come to the metro car, I have to, very often I have problems that I can damage my head because I'm tall enough. So the door must have a certain height. Well, people read in Rolling stock, so the lighting must be of the lighting must be enough. So the materials used must not be flammable because of high temperatures. Then the strength of materials also are to be proper. The door, when it closes, the door must not close when people are stuck there. So it's all very simple and understandable. There is a joke. One of the former members of the government during the times of Stalin, I don't remember his name, somebody who was responsible for the metro, and when the first line was commissioned, Stalin asked whether it works well. So Stalin told him, "Stuck your head in," and the doors closed, and this guy started shouting, "Well, it hurts." So the joke is that his ghost is still running in the metro, and out loud, "It hurts, it hurts." In order not to have such cases repeated, we manufacture our doors not to break for dozens of years. They are not to hurt your hands or heads. They have the strength of closing regulated. So we test it. We introduce a special object and measure how the mechanism works. So the door is ours. We haven't borrowed it from aviation or railways, etc. So Yunitskiy String Technologies is doing this, not generating or receiving money, as some people think. As far as I understand, it's not an easy task to design doors. Yes, it's one of the most complicated mechanisms. You have to understand the force, the strength with which it functions. If it closes and somebody is running in, and the door is to understand that it has to stop, and to stop at a certain distance in order not to damage the project stuck, and then to open. It's a very complex mechanism, and we have worked out our own mechanism, which is much dependable than in other transportation modes. The first models of string transport used this system as well. A unibike, for example. Unibike is a tourist variant. So it was the doors were opened and closed manually. So we are working out different mechanisms and testing them. We have the testing center where we test materials for strength. We have a lot of glued joints, a lot of composite materials, even steels. The stripe which we use for the railhead, unique and patented. We take examples of these steels and we check out their quality ourselves, the composition, whether it has all the necessary microelements that give it the necessary qualities, whether it hard as cleaned, how they conduct electricity, etc. We are doing it ourselves in our laboratories, in our test center. That is why we have created the whole complex for tests. And we extrapolate it on the project. It's not a rolling stock, but the whole complex, the whole infrastructural complex. So knowing all this, I know what is a certification, and that there should not be a lot of radio somebody has a cardio stimulator because of the radiation, high frequency radiation, such a person may have problems. So high frequency radiation is not to exceed certain limits. So we plan it ourselves, all these characteristics. We understand how important noise level is. It must be minimum. What is the maximum decibel quantity? So we determine the project quantity of all these characteristics, and then we test it all before entering the stage of certification. We know the braking distance. We know how the pair, wheel and rail works. There are requirements, and we comply. We know all the requirements. Not only speaking of a railway stock, but the overpass as well. The temperature influence, so our track structure works from -50 to +50 degrees centigrade. But not the limits are important, but the difference. Where -60 happens, +50 never happens, maximum +30. So the sum, the difference is important. The Emirates are much more comfortable. In summer, it's maximum. In spring, 60-65 degrees above zero. We measure the temperature of the rail, the maximum, the minimum, and the middle one. And because of this, it's stressed because of the temperature. We know all this. We consider in the project all the data obtained from our experience, because you are not able to find such data in the documentation, in the existing documentation. So all these things that have to do not only with the rolling stock, but with track structure, supports, and electricity, power supply, communication, the control. So all this is considered in the ready product. So the whole complex is certified. This year, TUV, a famous company that's doing all these things. So they checked on all the component parts. They've checked the rolling stock, the overpass, the supports, the stops, and even the control station. Depot, although it's not a depot, but just shops, we don't need it. Because there are no locomotives, railway cars. Just a small shop will be there repairing what we have. So all this has been checked on, and we have received the Yunitskiy technology, complex technology certificate. So such a certificate does not mean that now we can come, having it, we can come and build such complexes in any part of the world. So in each case, the certification will be carried out the same way, differently in every country. So certification is correspondence to the requirements. So we know the requirements in any country. So in any country, we can build a targeted project corresponding to the requirements in this country. So we will pass the certification in that country, not because we have a paper, the paper that we have mentioned, but we will pass the same certification in any country. We can invite TUV there. We have a long-term agreement signed with them. So in any country, with their help, we can achieve the certification to the local requirements. So despite problems, the year was very productive. Well, I also had coronavirus, and I was working. So this year was, despite coronavirus, was one of the most productive, and still the construction was going on. It was not very active due to the mentioned reasons, but it's still going on. I can compare with others. Look, according to the information that I have, maybe it's not quite accurate. To create E-mobi, $300 million were spent. 5 cars were made. One of them was presented to Zhirinovsky. One of them was shown to Putin. All in all, 5 cars were made. Then it all went bankrupt. The production was simplest in the former printing facility. And when I came and found out about it, and we have bought the facility where there was no machinery, no equipment. It was just an empty shop. And the designers, the half of the designers were hired by me. And we have invested here and in the Emirates. Nobody knows exactly, about $200 million. There, just compare $300 million and 5 cars. We have designed, manufactured, and tested 12 models, not cars. We have more cars, more electrical cars, E-mobils, high-speed, light, heavy, cargo, etc. And 5 more are under construction. So, and it cost us $200 million. We also bought this facility. Besides, we have much more buildings, including the office one, 12,000 square meters, a nine-story building which we bought, and then dozens of other buildings. So all this cost 200 and we have a lot of land, our own or rented. We have several test tracks, 5 tracks, 5 more test tracks are under construction. Still, we have paid the same $200,000. Hundreds of engineers work in Yunitskiy and Yunitskiy Technologies, and we've been paying salaries for years and years, and about 50 engineers work for E-mobi. Period. We do a lot of other work. For example, the construction of such buildings, we do it in the Emirates, and everybody wants to have a house like this. Sheikhs come and ask whether it's wood. How can it happen? It can be burned. It can burn. Well, I'd like to have a house like this. I breathe well here. When Indians built it, they just were sleeping during the lunch break. They were sleeping just on sand, but later on they began to sleep inside the building because the microclimate is much better there. So how many supports were manufactured and mounted? E-mobi, in the E-mobi project, they did not mount supports. Look at the station with the museum. Look at the laboratory complex with the most up-to-date equipment. Such a park of 5 coordinate, etc., most modern machine tools. Not a single Belarusian enterprise, including military ones, have in Belarus. Speaking of Belarus, so when I say about underfinancing, well, I just want to say, I'm not trying to complain. I just want to say that we have managed to do much more than promised, and we've done more than was possible. So when people ask why the company has existed for 5 years and there are no commercial projects, I think people just do not understand that 5 years is a very brief period to create a product and to reach the stage we're in now. It's clear I mentioned the terms myself, but I was optimistic, not pessimistic. I thought that we would have the state support, planned financing, with no force majeures, lockdowns, pandemic situations, etc. So they were not in my scenario. But say Lithuanian events delayed the project by some years, at least 2-3 years. So the scandal told on our reputation. I think we have lost about 100 million euros in 2 years. Had it not been for this, we would have realized our plans. But nobody knew it would happen. Compared to other infrastructure projects, very often I mention the magnetic trains. Our projects can be compared because they are both infrastructural projects, transportation, and complex. So, in the 30s of the 20th century, Germany started working on these projects. Siemens started working on the project. Then war happened. The work stopped. After the war resumed, test track was built, only one. We have much more. Only one model of the rolling stock was built. We have much more. Then they certified it, and they had only one project sold in China, 30 kilometers route long from Shanghai to the airport. 6.5 billion euros were invested, and it took them 50 years. Why were they doing it for 50 years? Why Siemens, a state in the state where hundreds of thousands of people work? So just compare them and us. Unibus, well, they say that pensioners work here for small money and motors from coffee machines are used here. No, our technology is no simpler. We also make unique things. It can be compared. Both projects can be compared. The same industry, both have overpasses. We, as engineers, are better. I also had variants of using the magnetic field. And being a student, I understood that it was a dead end. Why? Because in that project, a lot of energy is lost. The gap leads to losing a lot of energy. Being a student, I thought about the future transport. Everybody thought that the magnetic field, magnetic trains will exist in the future. But even then, I understood that it was a dead end. Because the most important thing is not the way the rolling stock is fixed on the track, but aerodynamics. We live in the atmosphere, and at high speeds, the main losses are due to aerodynamics. And the way you move on the track structure is not important. So the magnetic field killed all the aerodynamics. The parasitic influence, because of the gap, the magnetic field in the gap is lost. It even looks the way that it is understood that aerodynamics is not the strongest point. It is even worse than airplanes have, even at smaller speeds. As an engineer, I understood it long ago. And my analysis showed that steel wheel is much more efficient. until certain speeds. Bugatti is low, and aerodynamics is a problem. So at high speeds, the car can be even overturned. That's why it has spoilers. So CX of Bugatti is 0.42, and our Unibus is 0.006, several times better. Bugatti has 2 people inside, and the speed is 400 kilometers an hour, and the power is 1.5 thousand horsepower. In order to travel at our speeds, Bugatti needs 3,000 horsepower. So in St. Petersburg, I've tested the aerodynamics of our rolling stock, and it's the best aerodynamics in the world. So I managed to do it not in 50 years. So they, having made all these mistakes, the optimization mistakes, it's something different. Optimization requires the system complex thinking, and to reach synergy, and they had different, because the elements were deteriorating each other, and it led them to an accident, and more than 20 tourists were killed. It was a terrible accident. If it rains, if there is ice, if a branch falls. So they've created a cleaning machine that was cleaning the track structure. So I cannot understand how the same company could make it this way. The cleaning machine and the tourists were met each other on the same track structure. How the control system did not understand that they were heading each other, and they collided at the speed of 170 kilometers per hour. So in our case, it is impossible, because the steel wheel is not afraid of the ice, and our track structure is not to be cleaned. There's no need to clean the track structure. Even during the Azora times, 20 years ago, I understood it. I tested it. By the way, the trams maximum slope is 1 to 9, and even in Azora 20 years ago, we had 1 to 10 more. So then we have poured water on the rails. So we have created a layer of ice, and on top of it some snow. And Zil, the truck Zil, was there on steel wheels. I was sure that everything would go the right way. It was the first test of the kind. And experts gathered there told me it will not go. I understood what would happen. The wheel on the rail, steel on steel, creates such a pressure that the first wheel destroys ice, which is flowing away, which is flying aside, and the rest of the wheels travel steel on steel. Why it does not happen in the road transport? Because the pressure is 5 atmospheres maximum, and the snow is getting compressed and is turned into ice. So it's like skating. So we all understand, because our soles of our feet, of our shoes, are made of rubber. It's like tires. So I understand it. It will never happen in our case because it's all designed properly. So as far as I understand, Siemens has created a multi-component system. So it led to such a terrible catastrophe. In string transport, as far as I understand, the principle is make the thing simpler. No, it's not quite the case. An aesthetical, constructive minimalism. It's not just beautiful, it's the engineering beauty. Tupolev said that a beautiful airplane flies well. Engineering and constructive minimalism is important. When a sculptor creates a statue from the stone, it takes away the extra things, but you have to leave what is necessary. So this is the optimization, to be able to remove the extra, what is not necessary, to find the synergy. I'm sure that the Siemens has not carried, the Siemens company has not carried the analysis that I did. We are a big country. If I lived in a small country like Switzerland, I would have no thoughts about space, and sure, I wouldn't invent any transport. I'd think of opening a bank or a watch shop. That is why I received an education, and my bringing up was different. Oh, about diagnosing the track structure. Somebody asked you about it. You said, why? You have the rolling stock traveling on the track structure. Let it analyze the track. Yes, our designers very often think of something extra. Nothing unnecessary should be there. The track structure must have only the rolling stock. So speaking about optimization, in 5 years, a lot has been done. Usually a new car model is worked out in 2 years. Here, in 5 years, we have passed a much longer way. Before the computers, the Soviet engineers worked differently, when even calculators did not exist. So I work the same way. I use paper and a pencil. I have a working book, A4 sheets of paper. So I'm working using these papers. So about 20 books of this type were filled in with my thoughts and my calculations, and only 1/10 of that was used in life, because there was optimization. When I see that something is wrong, I do not try to modernize it. I think of something new. Not how to modernize it, but how to create something new. This is the optimization. It's stage by stage. It cannot be on the spot. It's not like some idea dawns on you. You have to work day and night. It may happen 3 a.m. or 5 a.m. and when you start doing something, you have to finish it. That's the way I do. Sometimes I get up at 5 a.m. and start drawing because I wake up with the idea of how to make something better or how to get to leave some idea and use some new one. And in this case, I gather the boys and tell them, we stop it because it's not perspective. And people say, well, we've spent a lot of time doing it, and say, no, it would be better to not to continue work on the system that will bring only expenditures. So what is more important, your work or the losses that mankind will bear? So work on the tracks that the work on which was stopped because of lockdowns even brought some progress because I've managed to think of something new, something more efficient. Does it mean that in 2021 first commercial projects started? This is, I mean to say, after 5 years, means that there will be no losses, that the decisions made would be much more efficient, that the results will be much better. Well, Steve Jobs started his work in 1978. The company had 12 years. We are even more prominent than their company was known after 5 years of their existence. You can only buy computers, give them to people who create something. Just create programs and then sell these programs for millions of dollars. So in IT, it's much easier. One airplane was Airbus was designed for 12 years and 20 billion euros were spent. It's not. Sometimes it's done much longer, for 20 and 30 years. We do not create an airplane. We create infrastructural complexes. It's much more difficult. We have no support from the state. Nobody demonizes them, but we are. We have problems. People try to destroy our project. That is why we do not mention the project, because if we mention them, a lot of letters will be sent there from haters, from enemies. That's why we're not doing it. Yes, we are protecting our business and protecting our investors. Hence, rebranding. Skyway was created by me. Skyway is just an overpass or a bridge. So that's what we're building. Sky is part of my surname. So I created it as a technology and started talking about it. And the first companies were created as technological ones using Skyway. But investment funds started using this term as the brand to attract investments. Of this, it was demonized. It's not the skyway that I created. It's another term, but it coincides. It's like Anatoly and another Anatoly and the third Anatoly, different people with the same name. So they were blamed that they are a financial pyramid, a Ponzi scheme, etc. But in fact, they're not this way. But a lot of haters and enemies started saying it. They used it, started writing articles in Wikipedia, etc. So this term has become toxic, not for investors, but for consumers, because consumers started to see the relations between what I do as an engineer and between what they, investment funds, do using crowd investing, the system of attracting investments. But these are absolutely different things. And because two notions were confused, I decided to leave that term. But investment funds have their right. They make no part of our group of companies, but we are not changing our history. Like everybody is calling on destroying all the monuments to Lenin, but we cannot change our history. Well, it's a part of other notions. Skyworld, Spaceway, it's a complex technology that I created. That's why SW is not just Skyway. There are much more important programs for me. Spaceway is a more important program of transferring, of moving harmful industry into open space. So about rebranding, who's interested may read the press release. Something new has appeared this year. The engineer of the new world, like Yunitskiy is the engineer of the new world. I like to walk barefoot. It's useful for health. Why it is so? But it means that I'm not afraid of the world I live in. They say, how? They can be pieces of glass. Okay, well, get hurt, it will heal. Well, if a bee bites you, well, there is something useful even in the bee poison. So the microorganisms that live in on soil, on the grass, all this is useful to a certain extent. If you watch yourself 100%, leave no bacteria, you will not live for long. Trillions of bacteria live on us, and the vaccines that you take will not help you. When you take from land what lives on our skin, it just restores our natural habitat, so to say. If I could, I'd walk on other planets barefoot, but unfortunately, the conditions are different there. But I can walk barefoot on our Earth, on our soil. So why do I speak about the new world? Our world is heading a dead end, because dead end technologies will kill the biosphere. So 2 generations are left, nothing more. The pandemic disclosed another factor. They speak of some hidden government. There are globalists, liberals. They've chosen another way. 5D digitalization, decarbonization, deindustrialization, depopulation, desocialization. So if they realize their plans, we will. So about the civilization will be dead by 2030. We will all be digitalized, lying on the old sofas, in old jeans. So you won't be able to. So you'll live in the virtual world and dream of anything you want. And then you'll die, leaving no offspring. That's what our life is going. The beautiful world that they describe is just their fantasies. It will be different. Just they show it in detail in their movies. They show it in movies about the apocalypse. When they call us there, they say about different things. Why do you need your own house? You are going to rent it. Why do you need a car? You'll work from home. Why do you need a big house? You can just put on the glasses and imagine that you live in a villa on the beach. And then when you remove your glasses, you understand that you are no one. But somebody will own it, and we understand who, and we understand why it is done to achieve the power over all humanity, turning the humanity into a flock of sheep. So industry is going at the same direction. And the vector is even more terrible than what's going on. So we have to resist it. I have to explain that we are not going there. Thinking that we can move in some other direction, we must not close the industry, but we must change it. We must not remove the power supply. We must change it where the relic electrical stations will use its waste to grow, to produce humus and grow grapes and produce champagne that we'll drink for the beautiful future. Because what they offer us is the medieval ages, the dark years. We have to change agriculture. It has to be organic. To change the mode of living. We can provide a house for each and every family and a garden and 1/10 of a hectare of land to any family and grow orchards on the roof of these houses that will be able to sustain the life of each and every family. There will be no shortages of food. Transportation problem is also will also be solved by stream transport. The problem of shortage of land is also solved, because even if we build a house, the land under it is transferred to its roof, and an orchard will grow there. So there will be, in fact, more land. So linear cities will make the quantity and the quality of land higher. The houses will occupy just 1/200th of the surface of the planet, but they will feed everyone. Let's go here and not there where they call us as sheep. It's understandable. That's why I am comparing. Before I try to avoid it. We are all clever people. The way offered to us is impossible. Well, we must be idiots to follow where they call us. But I see that it's happening. And it's not a nightmare. It's not a Hollywood movie, a catastrophe movie. It's happening in our real life, and many people do not see it. People say, well, it's very well. What we are doing is a reaction to this. We are going to save the planet and humankind with our technology. So the year was not just very intense, but a breakthrough year, despite the problems. Yes, my mind changed. I gathered investors. I created companies in the technology. It's not that I'm going to boast, saying I, me, mine. Well, I say us. So my mind has also changed. I understand that it's a turning point of our civilization. I have a family, I have children, I have grandchildren. Also will have their children and grandchildren, and I would like them to live in my world, but not in the world drawn by the globalists. Sure, people will choose themselves where they want to live, but I'd like them to live in my world as an engineer, not a businessman, not somebody who wants to rule the world, have 5 yachts, 3 islands, and a dozen of Boeings, airplanes. The so-called elite is doing all this to preserve its power. That is why they want to treat us as sheep. I'm thinking of people. I'm not going to rule it. So it has to be. So the clusters, linear cities, will control themselves. People sharing common interests will gather there, united by religious motives, art, physicists. People will live in communities sharing their interests, not violating the laws of the country where they live. Very often you are compared to an American visionary, I mean Elon Musk, who has announced himself as a techno king. What's the difference? The king is somebody who has the power. I'm a monarch, I'm sovereign, and an engineer. So it's a very modest word. An engineer is somebody serving the humanity, creating instruments for people to live better. That is why I'm an engineer of the new world, not of the old world. I'm creating technologies leading to a new world, a better, a more humane world. That world where this techno king lives. Well, normal people are not, I think it's better for them not to live there. So it's not a new abstract world, but it's a new world is the new world created today. We can, everybody can come and see it. We have new projects, we have received certification, and it's getting better all the time. And I think next year will be the best in our life. So Happy New Year.